Hi there, you guys. My name is Elsie Johnson, and this is a monthly funder update. What's up, you guys? So my name is Elsie Johnson. I am the founder and CEO of Zora's House, which is a gathering space and close-knit community that centers the healing, creativity, activism, and leadership of women of color. First of all, most of y'all should already know this because over the course of the last couple years, you have become an investor in Zora's House. So whether you have donated $5, $5,000, $5 million, not a one of y'all has ever donated $5 million, but whether you have donated $5, $5,000, or however much, I consider you to be an investor in the work that we're doing, a funder of the work that we're doing. With that in mind, I had the brilliant idea of creating these monthly video updates for our investor community, which is you, to give you a sense of what we're actually up to at Zora's House and what you are helping to support with your time, talent, and treasure. January was a huge month for us in a variety of different ways, but there are three particular updates that I'm going to be sharing with you today. In January, after 3 years, I became the first full-time salaried employee of Zora's House. Cue all the fanfare, all of those little not even balloon, what are those emojis with the little hurrah, confetti emojis? Yes, cue all of the things. What's interesting is that a lot of people who have been following Zora's House for some time have assumed that I have been full-time at Zora's House. Zora's House has been my full-time gig for years, and that in fact is not true. I've actually always had a full-time job the entire time that I've been running Zora's House. However, really in the last 12 to 18 months, the organization has been growing to a point, and the need has been growing, and the demand has been growing to the point where Zora's House really needs full-time leadership. And it has needed that full-time leadership for some time, but it has needed to wait until such a time as I was able to come on and be a full-time salaried staff and be able to replace my salary of $75,000. And I'm being very transparent around my salary, first of all, because I think it's really important that leaders, especially women, especially Black women, are transparent around what they are being paid. And also because I know some of y'all might be interested in starting organizations, and so I want to be really transparent about what it took for me to get here. So for me, $75,000 was the absolute floor of where I could go because I have 2 kids. My husband and I are a dual income household. And one of the things that I told him is that I would not be transitioning to full-time until I was able to replace that salary. And it took us 3 years to be able to get the level of investment that we needed in order for me to be able to make that leap. But I am so excited. We will always be a grassroots passion project that is led and created and shaped by the women of color who actually come in and experience Zora's House. However, one of the things that we're really looking to in 2021 is thinking about what does it mean for us to be a sustainable organization that can begin to measure and scale our impact. So for that, Zora's House needs additional capacity, and the first step in that is full-time leadership. Systemically, this is also a really big deal because the bulk of companies that are owned and operated by Black folks generally, but then women of color and Black women more specifically, never get to the point where they actually are able to employ a full-time person. And so I am incredibly excited to now be breaking out of that statistic and to be creating an organization that has been invested in by the community, where we are able to not only provide my job, but one of the things you'll hear about shortly is actually we're going to be bringing on 2 additional full-time leadership fellows. And yeah, I'm excited. It is a new chapter for me and a new chapter for Zora's House. In January, Zora's House became the inaugural recipient of the Women's Fund of Central Ohio's Enduring Progress Fund, which is a brand new fund that is specifically created to address systematic racism and sexism, and initially is going to focus on funding programs that are created by and for women of color. And I am so excited about this fund. I'm so excited about this for multiple reasons. First of all, check for $50,000. That's a lot of money. we have not seen very many checks for $50,000 in our organizational history. So that was a huge deal, and I am very excited about what we're going to be able to do with those funds. But on a much larger level, the Women's Fund has explicitly stated that they are trying to close some of these funding disparity gaps, which are literally horrendous. So if you haven't yet seen the Ms. Foundation's report Pocket Change, it basically says that women of color and Black women in particular get less than a half of 1% of all funding in terms of organizations that are actually led by Black women, other women of color. Like, I'm sorry, less than a half of 1%. That statistic was really, that was hard to read, but it wasn't surprising. You know, I remember in November of last year, not in November of last year, November of 2019, I think it was, the New York Times posted an article that was talking about how so much of progressive movement work is happening and being led by Black women and organizations run by Black women, but that Black women get like the least amount of funding. And this isn't shocking, but it is something that, is so distressing that we're still in the space where Black women, our ideas and our leadership are so incredibly under-resourced. One of the challenges that we have with Zora's House is that when we go out and we try to get funding for the work that we're doing, we will often encounter funders who will say, oh yeah, well we do support women of color. We have, and then they'll start telling me about the homelessness work and the poverty work and the anti-hunger work that they're doing and the GEDs that they're trying to sponsor. It's become very clear that for a lot of funders, women of color is synonymous with low-income women. And that's frustrating. And it's very frustrating to be in conversations where I say, I'm working with women of color and somebody points me to the homeless shelter. And it is equally frustrating when I've seen that funders are very comfortable oftentimes with, funding Black women's survival. And don't get me wrong, those programs are incredibly important. Women of color and Black women in particular are often, impacted by some of these things in a disproportionate way. They overrepresent in our homeless shelter here in Franklin County, Ohio, which is where I live. And so I understand, and I think there is need for that type of funding as well. However, I think the challenge lies when funders get so used to thinking that funding homelessness is funding Black women, right? And I think getting to the point where so much philanthropy is directed towards Black women and women of color and their survival, and not in their dreams and their leadership and their creativity and their activism, that work needs support as well. That's the work that we're doing here at Zora's House. The CEO of the Women's Fund called this courageous capital, because it really requires funders to have a level of trust and courage and say, you know what, I see what you're doing and we want to fund this. This is an unrestricted gift. It's not something that has to do with a particular program, but it says the work that you are doing at Zora's House is important. Here's how we're going to come through and support this. So I am super excited. We are the inaugural recipient. This is the largest standalone investment that the Women's Fund of Central Ohio has ever made, ever. So that is huge. And we're about to put that money to work. All right, my final update for this month is that as of January 31st, Zora's House officially surpassed its 100th member. And this is a huge deal for us, especially because, like many businesses in 2020, it was rough for a time period. We had so many members who were impacted financially by the pandemic. One of the things that we tried to do is make sure that nobody had to leave Zora's House because of financial reasons, but that also meant deferring quite a few memberships and suspending payments on memberships. So ultimately, it was very in line with our values and also was challenging for us on a financial level. The other thing that really was hard for us in 2021 is that one of the main ways that people become a part of the Zora's House community is by being in the space and attending events. And our space has been closed, and we were not able to do events in the same way or the same type of events that we typically have. And so for a good period of the year, we were not kind of experiencing a lot of new membership. So it's a huge milestone for us that we surpassed our 100th member. Super excited about that. And I also think it has to do with two new membership related policies that we implemented towards the middle and end of last year. The first is that we switched over from a traditional model to what we call a meaningful investment model, which means that our members can actually choose however much they want to invest in themselves per month, a number that is meaningful to them in terms of investing in themselves, but also feasible for whatever their life situation is. It, again, was a way for us to be very aligned in our values and say, look, we don't want finances to be the reason that somebody doesn't have a Zora's House membership, but at the same time, we do need to pour back into the community. So allowing people to do that in whatever way makes sense for them was really transformative for us, I think, and made our membership a lot more accessible. The other thing that we did at the end of the year was that we switched over from having a rolling acceptance of members where people could join at any time to actually just opening up the doors for new members once a month. And this really was such a good decision on our end. First of all, it allows for folks to come in as a cohort as opposed to having kind of like one lone person being like, hey guys, I'm new. You're actually having a group of people all coming in at the same time, and it allows us to make sure that those folks are having a really good experience, that they don't get lost in the shuffle, and that they don't overwhelm the community. And I think it also, from a sales perspective and a business perspective, allows us to really spend time sharing with our prospects, like, what is it that's really special about Zora's House membership, so that by the time those doors open, it is a time sensitive, they're open for 48 hours. People can join, or else they have to wait till the next month. And I think that was truly amazing. We actually had over 30 members sign up in January. We were expecting around 15, and we had 30. So that is a huge milestone, and also just helping us to realize that we can build a membership model that is really aligned with our values, and that when we do step into that work in a particular way, in ways that feel good for us, it actually is good for the business and good for our bottom line. And that was just such an important and amazing lesson, and such an uplifting way to start January of this year. So January was a big ass month. It was just huge. There was so much happening. I seriously hope that you thought this video was helpful and enjoyable. If you did, let me know, and I will continue to produce these little updates. Again, I just want to say thank you so much. You are watching this video because you are an investor in me and an investor in this work, and so grateful to call you an investor and a comrade as we move forward to build this vision that is Zora's House. I'll see y'all next month. In January, Zora's House became the first reciprocal. Oh my gosh, I can't even talk.